Hi guys, this week we're going to talk about going from good to great as a writer. I'm going to put up a bell curve first and another graph to explain why this is important. Okay, here's first the bell graph. As you'll see from one end, it's really bad writers. They're really rare. These are people who have no idea. And the other end are the great writers. These are great writers, phenomenally good, the professional writers. And in the middle is where a lot of us are, and we'll go from okay to good down that sliding continuum on the other side. The more you learn, the less and less there are people like you. The better you get, the less and less there are people like you. Now I'm going to put another line over the top of that. And that shows the amount of work that goes to people throughout that bell. These aren't based on 100% statistics. I can't give you citations. This is just a representation of common knowledge, common sense. The great guys will be offered all the work. And as they're unavailable, people will come down further and further to what they perceive is less great writers, until there's that little crossover there where, you know, the all right writers, they're really good. They're far better than average, as you can see, are going to get a moderate amount of work offered to them. And then less and less work gets offered to people as they go further up the bell curve, to where if you're just an average writer, you'll probably get offered no real work. You may not sell something, or you may sell something to someone who's of an average capacity as you as a screen maker. So someone who's starting out might buy one of your starting out specs.
Am I making any sense at all?
But we have to understand that good enough is not good enough. It's okay. And if you love writing, that's where you may be for the rest of your life. And that's fantastic. I encourage people to write for the love of the art. But if you're thinking, I'm going to make a career of this, you have to keep learning and pushing yourself towards greatness. So what makes greatness? I'm not going to say, here's the one thing in your dialogue. Never use ing in your description. Make sure you have that bold or two space. That's sort of irrelevant. What I'm going to talk about is the overall story and the things that people make readers feel they're in really good hands. And when you see these things, or the lack of these things, you tend to go, huh, and that jumps you back up that bell curve towards average. Great writers tend to keep these sort of things not front of mind. It becomes natural to them. It's what makes them great. Okay, if you've got a character, they should have a reason for what they're doing. I know this sounds obvious. I'm not talking about your main characters. These are all your ancillary characters, all your little background characters. They need to have a reason for what they're doing. They just don't turn up and suddenly hand information out, or sit down, son, I'm going to tell you about the time that your grandma did that, for no apparent reason. That stinks, that smells. People can just tell that they're there for that one thing, is to give the audience information. There's no reason why they're having that conversation. There's no reason why they're giving that information. There's no reason why they're suddenly betraying their boss to help out the protagonist. They need to have their own little 3-act structure in their life that leads them to this point. And then it makes the story feel round and well formed, because we see there's a real story over here and a real story over there, and it's coalescing here in front of us into this experience we're having. If we suddenly just have this character come forward and give this information because I'm really sick of the neighborhood being taken over by evil villains, or those really, that sort of lack of motivation of things, that feels very plastic. Or people go, this happened to me 30 years ago and this is the first opportunity I've got to help. Not really. They would have lived their life in that way all the time. I know people that have damaged from an experience that's happened years ago, and it's always been part of their makeup. They've always acted because they're influenced by the damage they had when they were much younger. So make sure that they have a reason for their action. They should also want something out of the story. You aren't just... The example I give to people is you're on a train. You hear a boyfriend and girlfriend arguing. He says something really dumb. She gets up and gets off at the next station. You sit there and you may go, oh, that was really dumb. You may think back of arguments you've had. You may think of all sorts of things, but you're not going to give him advice. Why? Because you're not part of his story. It would be rude, it might be anti-so, it might not be part of your culture, whatever it happens to be. But you don't have as the Aussies would say, you don't have a dog in his fight. Right? But if it's your brother, right? Your brother has an argument in the house when you're there with his girlfriend. She storms out. And when it calms down a bit, you're going to go to your brother and go, dude, what were you thinking? Come on, you said this and this. You know that was the wrong thing to say. You can't treat your girlfriend that way, whatever it happens to be, because you have a dog in that fight. You want to see your brother happy. So you're going to try to make him be happy. Characters need to have a dog in the fight. They need to be a reason that they're going to inject themselves into the story. Once they have a reason they're going to inject themselves in the story, they also need to get something back from it. We're talking ancillary characters now. Remember this. We're not talking the main characters. The ancillary characters. This is also how you get good actors that want to be your B characters. These ancillary characters make it feel, it makes it feel great. It'd be like building a really good house in the middle of a desert or in a bad neighborhood. It's not going to be an expensive thing to buy because it's not surrounded by everything that people that buy expensive houses want. You can have a great main character surrounded by terrible characters that have no support in the story. The story falls apart. So we're talking about those secondary characters, remember? The other thing, they need to get something from this story. Like I said, you want to make sure that your brother's happy. That's your dog in the fight. What you want to get out of that? What do you want to get from having your brother having a good relationship? You want some payback. Either it makes you feel good, it feeds into your relationship with him. It feeds you in some way. These characters need to get something back from the action the protagonist is taking, even if it's to save their loved one. But it can't be, okay, logic, they're going to give information. So what do they gain from giving that information? Yep, they've got a dog in the fight, but now they need payback. There need to be a reason. They need motivation to make that. The love of their brother might be the motivation, but what's their payback? And how are we going to make sure that they get that payback? If we can delay their payback, we may be able to make them slightly more involved later on. That they're going to, this is a bit like that mentor that people talk about. Give you some advice, it comes back, they keep helping away, they go away, they come back. But you need that sort of payback that makes this secondary character three-dimensional. The other thing that's going to be to make it a great story is that it has to be, there's a scale. I've spoken about this before, there's a scale. The character's action on what they're risking and what they're risking something to give this information to the character. They're also going to gain something. What they gain has to be as big as their risk. What they're willing to do has to be commensurate with what they're going to get back. So I've always used the example of someone cuts you off in traffic. So you go home, get a gun and murder 1,000 people. That doesn't make sense because someone cut you off in traffic, unless of course you're mentally ill, and that's the bending of the scales. So the help, the assistance they give to the protagonist has to be commensurate to what they're going to get or what they're going to be threatened with. It has to be of equal value. It's not like a perpetual motion machine where you touch it and then suddenly the ball runs forever and ever and ever and ever. But you touch it, it rolls and stops. So what they put in has to be commensurate to what they're getting back, has to be their motivation, and it has to balance up. And we have to also make sure that their motivation is based on the three basic motivations: suffering, jealousy, dissatisfaction. So they may be solving their own problem by giving your main character information. So they're dissatisfied with what they have, so they're going to use your main character as a proxy to get what they want. So you can see now what I said before, where they have to want something from the story. They have to be motivated to do this. By building out very good secondary characters, and even this bleeds into how you write your main characters, just takes your story from being good to making it great. So great writers they don't make these mistakes. They use this. They fill out everything. They're like gas. They expand to take up all the room available. They will make every character a great character. They'll make their story full of logic and people acting logically in it. They will have the story marching forward. They don't have characters come in and give information just for the sake of giving information. It has to be, even if you read Hell and High Water or watch the movie Hell and High Water, the brothers that are robbing the banks turn around to their friend in the bank and go, "Why are you doing this?" Why, a solicitor, I think he's, or an accountant. "Why are you doing this?" And he tells them that he grew up here, he's a local like they are, and they've seen the banks just devastate this. He would have had a If the banks hadn't have done what they've done, he would have had a thriving community, he would have had a thriving business. Instead, the town that he wanted to spend his life in is dying around him because of that. And he's using the brothers that are doing the bank robberies as a proxy to get revenge on the bank. He's not really, going to ruin his own life. He's just getting revenge on the bank by just helping them clear some checks, helping them get a contract done, making sure payments are made on time. That's all he's doing. He's doing his job, but what motivates him to turn a blind eye to their bank robbery is the banks have destroyed the town, the people he's loved, the families, the community where he wanted to spend the rest of his life. He's not coming out and robbing the banks with them because that would have been a stretch too far for that character, but he's willing to turn a blind eye to the bank robbery and assist them because that's as much risk as he's willing to take. That's how big the dog is that he has in that fight to make sure that the banks suffer for what they've done to the community. The scale balances up. That's it for this week, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone who's been doing the thumbs up and doing all this sort of stuff. That's been amazing. Thank you to people who have been comments, been having so many good conversations. There's the t-shirts, the books. I'm going to be sharing a link very soon to a GoFundMe for a great actor, someone who was in a film that never made it to production, was killed by COVID. His name's Matt Lamb. I'll share his link. He's been in a very bad vehicle accident, so we're trying to just raise a little bit of money for Matt. And until next time, guys, keep writing. Bye.